Okay, welcome to this Facebook Live on Master of Science in Health Data Science. My name is JP Onella and I'm the director of the Master's Program. Here next to me is...
I'm Heather Maddie and I'm the executive director of the HDS program.
So our goal in the next half an hour or so is to give you an overview of the program, and then you'll have an opportunity to ask questions and we'll do our best to try to answer your questions. We thought that it would be helpful to start with an overview of what is data science. What do we mean when we talk about data science? And it's one of these questions that the answer is going to depend on whom you ask. But most people would agree that data science is a field that lies in the intersection of statistics and computing. Many would also add that it's a multidisciplinary field that blends inference, data wrangling, algorithmic development, and visualization of data. Many people think that data science is going to have an increasingly important role in the future. Just to give you one quote from Google, the ability to take data, to be able to understand it, process it, extract value from it, to visualize it, to communicate it, is going to be a hugely important skill in the next decades, not only at the professional level, but even at the educational level for elementary school kids, for high school kids, and for college kids. Another definition of data scientist that we like to use, in addition to the previous one, is one that's offered by Dr. DJ Patil, who was the former White House chief data scientist. And this is a quote from him. A data scientist is that unique blend of skills that can both unlock the insights of data and tell a fantastic story via the data. So this is an overview of what is data science and what is a data scientist. Then what do we mean by a health data science? So simply put, health data science is data science applied to health data, where health data can mean anything that pertains to biomedical sciences and public health. So in this setting, the data can originate from observational studies, from clinical trials, from computational biology, from electronic medical records, from healthcare claims, from genetic and genomic epidemiology, environmental health, digital phenotyping, network science, and many, many other fields. So next I'm going to hand it over to our executive director, Dr. Heather Maddie, and she's going to give you a little bit more details about our program.
Right, so our program is 3 semesters long. It starts in a fall semester and it ends in a fall semester. We do not start in spring semesters, so it must be in a fall. We do not require a traditional thesis. We have a capstone course. We'll talk a little bit about that later on, but it's a project-based course, and it's also a career development workshop course. Our students receive training in quantitative methods, including applied regression, statistical inference, machine learning, consultation, collaboration, and epidemiology. And our first cohort started in the fall of 2017, and we now have our second cohort that just started a couple of months ago. Just to give you a timeline for the 3 semesters, because they do go rather quickly, we have 3 core courses. We have a total of 5 core courses that are required. I'll go into those again in a minute. 3 of them must be taken the first semester along with the epidemiology course, that's a school requirement, and 1 or 2 elective courses. The second semester is in the spring, and you must take 2 core courses, 1 computer science course, and 2 to 3 elective courses. The final semester focuses with the capstone course, and then 3 to 4 elective courses, depending on how many credits you need to finish the degree. And the degree is a 60 credit degree with more or less 20 to 20 credits per semester. Some students take more than 20, some take a little bit less, but 60 credits must be completed for the degree. For those interested in applying this cycle, if accepted, you would start August of next year, so 2019. You would finish classes December of 2020, and then the degree would actually be conferred in March of 2021. So you would be able to begin full-time positions in January of 2021. And we do encourage students to apply for internships and research opportunities during the summer between their coursework, right after their first year. We have a lot of new courses that have been developed for this program. These make up our core courses. And so we have an introduction to data science, and that focuses on data wrangling and visualization and statistical inference regarding regression and some machine learning. Then we also have a data science 2, which is an introduction to deep learning and neural networks. That's offered in the spring. We have computing for big data that includes Unix scripting and C and working with databases. And we also have statistical learning, which covers the statistical methods behind machine learning. And so not only do we focus on a lot of computer programming, but we focus on the statistical methods behind those data science and machine learning methods. We have a broad range of curriculum. Our core courses cover everything from statistical inference, like I said before, to data wrangling and visualization. We do go through Monte Carlo simulations, and model selection, and then with the computer science requirement, because we do require one computer science course. You, of course, can take as many as you would like, but one is required. Those can span anything from data engineering and data systems to precision medicine, data structures and algorithms, and other electives can span more statistical inference, like applied longitudinal analysis and applied survival analysis. For our Capstone course, it's a full semester course. Typically, a full semester course is worth 5 credits, but the Capstone course is worth 7.5. And so it's almost like a course and a half for the semester. It's a lot of work. The students come to class once a week, but then they work at least 15 hours a week on the projects outside of class. It's all project-based. So we have 3 different projects. The first one, students are given a data set and a research question, and they must come up with their own analysis and do a literature review and choose the appropriate statistical analysis and modeling, and then write up about their results. So it's almost like a scientific paper in a way. The second one focuses on reproducible research and how to critique the reproducibility of a paper and an analysis. And the third project is a group project, and that has to do with deep learning and machine learning for prediction. And again, this is not a thesis. Data science is very hands-on and applied, so we didn't want to have a typical thesis. We wanted to make it much more applied and project-based. We predominantly use Python and R in our core courses. There is some exposure to C++, Unix, and Java in one of our core courses. And in other electives, especially computer science and the biostats electives, expose students to SAS. Just to give you an overview to see what our current students look like, we just, like I said before, we have 2 cohorts now, 32 students total, 20 are female, 12 are male. Roughly half of our students came directly from the workforce, about 40% from undergraduate, and about 10% from some other master's or doctorate program. So there's kind of a big range. The degree backgrounds that they do come from, mostly mathematics, statistics, computer science, chemical engineering is a big one. We do have 2 clinicians now in our new cohort, and so MDs. We do have MDs in our program. Economics and finance are also represented with our cohort, and the work backgrounds of our cohorts include analysts, marketing, and program management, and pharmaceutical consulting.
It's really a very diverse cohort.
Yeah. Okay, just some details about the application, and again, we'll answer other questions as you guys type them in. The deadline is December 1st. That is always will be the deadline every year. For prerequisites, an undergraduate degree in a STEM or allied field is required. Allied field spans a lot of different degrees, but anything related to, anything quantitative, anything that you can relate to mathematics or programming or public health. Practical knowledge of a computer scripting or programming language like R or Python is needed, definitely. You don't need to be you don't need to be a master of it, but you do need to know how to code. We do start at the basic level, but we work up fairly quickly. It's not a very long program, so we get there quickly. Multivariable calculus is needed, as well as 1 semester of linear or matrix algebra. You can take these courses online to meet that requirement, but calculus and matrix algebra or linear algebra are really needed for the statistical inference course and the statistical learning course in the spring. And then, of course, written and spoken English, excellent written and spoken English. Test scores are a requirement. You can submit the GRE or the MCAT. So if you've taken the MCAT, you do not need to take the GRE. You can submit the MCAT scores. And then the TOEFL exam for international students. Transcripts are also needed, and for any institutions outside of the US or non-English language institutions in Canada do need to complete the WES evaluation. There's also a statement of purpose, letters of recommendation. We do have a minimum of 3, but a maximum of 5. And then lastly, your CV or resume. And I would recommend to list all of your relevant coursework, especially courses that you've taken online that won't show up in your transcript. That lets us know what curriculum you have seen and completed, as well as any projects that you've worked on in data science or public health.
Let's go back to the maybe the front page here. So I think this concludes the very brief, very informal overview of the program. And we have a bunch of questions from you guys. Maybe I can start with the first question since I think I know the answer. Mm-hmm. So one of the questions here is, how large is the program in terms of the accepted cohort? So our incoming cohort is something like 15 or 16 students. There's another question about what are typical class sizes. So that varies depending on the course. We have some courses which are only accessible to the HDA student. At least the Capstone course is one of those projects. So everybody in that course is going to be part of your cohort. So you have 15 or 16 other students in that class. Some of the other courses can be larger. What would you say, Heather, what's a typical class size for our students?
If it's a very introductory course or a very popular data science course, there's going to be about 70 students, 60 to 70. But I would say the average for the School of Public Health is about 30.
That sounds great.
Yep. The next question is, are there scholarships for international students or any source of financial assistance? Yes, we do have a limited number of scholarships available, so they are competitive. But they are based on financial need as well as merit. So we can't, the amount changes every year. We can't fully fund anyone, but we can at least partially fund some of the tuition.
And I believe last year we gave financial assistance to maybe 3 or 4 students, roughly something like that. Yeah. There's one question here, do students get to work with real-world data for the projects during the program? And if so, what kind of data are these? So many of the courses contain, I think essentially all of the courses contain real-world data. The Capstone project is completely built around working with real-world data. And another opportunity for students to work in a real-world setting is after their first year in the summer. So we try to help with finding internships and other types of opportunities where you can really try and really try to apply the skills that you've learned. Most of the courses, I would say, are fairly applied, but that doesn't mean that they don't contain some heavier theoretical components as well.
All right, next question. Since the program is 3 semesters long, are international students from the program eligible for OPT and STEM extensions? I honestly don't know about STEM extensions. You'd have to contact the Harvard International's office for that information. We can give you that contact in the comments after this session. But I can tell you that almost all of our international students in the HDS program have completed OPT.
There's one question here about the difference between the HDS, the Health Data Science program, and the SM60 and SM80 Biostatistics master's programs, which are also provided by the department. Overall, our department has actually 5 different master's programs. So the best way to learn about the differences of these different programs is to go on the department's webpage, which gives you a fairly detailed description about the contents of those different programs. Maybe one way to characterize that difference is that the SM60/SM80, they are more traditional programs in biostatistics. In contrast, HDS, being a data science program, has more components like computing, scripting, more applied machine learning. Is that a fair description?
I think so. How should applicants showcase their programming skills in R or Python, for example, in their applications? I think the best way to do this is to include any courses you've taken or projects you've done using R or Python or some other programming language on your CV or resume. You can also mention them in your personal statement if you found one of your projects particularly interesting or you learned a great deal, just to kind of make sure that we understand you've been exposed to a programming language that would be helpful.
And just to add my 2 cents to that, let's say that you've worked on a project and the code is available. You could post your code on GitHub, and then you could bring that up in your application and say, oh, by the way, I have these repositories that I have contributed to, and they're available on GitHub. That could be one way to showcase your expertise and experience in this area. There's one question here, can you do a thesis for a capstone project? So the answer is no. So you have to do the capstone project, and there is no possibility of replacing that with a more traditional thesis. And this is by design. We really felt that in a data science program, it's important to be able to apply your skills, to have a more hands-on culminating experience. And some of the work that's done in that class is individual-based, like Heather mentioned, so you work on a project by yourself, but other components are done in a group of 3 or 4 other students. So the idea is to practice working independently, but also working as part of a group. But you have to take the capstone again, and you cannot write a thesis instead.
Next question, what are the minimum math prerequisites? Are self-study for math stats or programming allowable, I guess? The minimum math requirements, you must take calculus through multivariable calculus. That calculus is used your first semester for your statistical inference course. You also need a semester of linear or matrix algebra. In terms of a online course, just getting to know how to work with matrices and doing any kind of matrix manipulation is going to be needed. I'm trying to think of other things for that. So if you've taken it at an institution and you can show that on your transcripts, that works, but you can also take it online. On our resources tab on the HDS website, there are example online courses that you can take to fulfill those requirements.
That's right. That's actually a very useful resource. Heather has been the primary person putting those resources together, so you should definitely check that out.
We'll be adding more as well
That's
soon.
Right. So there's one question here. What is the average GRE score of accepted students? So we don't keep statistics of accepted GREs, of accepted students. And generally, when we think about admissions are done by the entire executive committee, and the members of the committee are listed here on this slide behind us. And so rather than focusing on any individual component, we just try to think about the student, the applicant as a whole. So we look at everything you've done, your work experience, your grades, your GRE, everything possible. And so it's a very holistic evaluation.
And that kind of actually feeds into the next question about, in terms of application materials, what do you value the most? What do you look for in a statement of purpose? Again, we look at the application as a whole. We don't just base it on test scores or GPA. I think not the biggest, but one of the best things for your personal statement to include is what you're passionate about. Why are you getting this degree? What is it going to do for you in the future? That is really impactful for us, and a lot of our students are passionate about some area of public health. It's okay if it don't have a completely full idea of what you want to do, that's fine, but as long as you're passionate about something and that comes across, that's great.
Yeah, I think that's a very good description. There is one, now that we're on the topic of the application itself. How many letters of recommendation do I need for the application? So the minimum number is 3 and maximum number is 5. And when you think about who are good individuals to write your letters, you may want to think about people who've seen different aspects of you. So maybe somebody taught you a programming class and you did really well. You could ask that person to write a letter. Somebody else might be able to comment on your work experience and so on. So the ideal would be that those letters would give us an understanding of you from multiple different perspectives. And of course, the better these individuals know you, the more helpful those letters will be.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of students, when they ask for recommendation letters, they just ask for a letter. What's really nice is if you go to someone and say, will you write me a strong letter of recommendation? Because that might help, make sure that recommender is going to write you a good letter.
And the person knows you reasonably well.
Yeah. Does this program accept applicants with an industrial engineering background? I don't think we have yet, but that doesn't mean that we won't in the future. So if you meet all of the prerequisites for the program, and I'm sure industrial engineering probably does, then I would say you're free to apply.
And like one of the earlier slides demonstrated, we do have a very diverse cohort, people with different kinds of skills. So if you meet the prerequisites, are interested in the area, then definitely you should go ahead and apply. It's a programming related question, which I might tackle next. So for programming skills, is SAS considered, or does it have to be R and Python? So some of the courses do use SAS, but R and Python are much broadly used. In terms of incoming experience, any experience is going to be helpful, and I think that when you describe your experience, it might be more important to say what is it that you've done using that language, rather than which specific language you used. I don't know if there's an addition you want to make to that, or...
No, I think as long as we know that you're proficient in programming, once you know one language, I think it's easy to pick up other languages. Definitely. And so just having that skill to be able to pick up a language is what's really needed. Is there any internship or work component, or is it strictly coursework and the Capstone course? As part of the program itself, there are no internship or work components to that. It's strictly coursework in the Capstone. That does not mean you're not able to go and get an internship or a research assistantship or work. That's absolutely a possibility. It's just not part of our program.
So one of the questions here is, I took a combined course in linear algebra and differential equations. Is this sufficient? And the answer is that it probably is. It really depends on the content of that course. So I think the questions I would have is, how prominently was linear algebra featured in that course? So this is something that I would advise you to look into. If there was a fair bit of linear algebra, that could easily be sufficient.
I'm actually going to jump down here. Is it possible to finish in 2 semesters? No. The way the program timing is, you complete all of the core courses within the first year, and then you need those completed and successfully passed to participate in the Capstone course, which takes place in the last semester. And so because of that timing and those skills that are needed for the Capstone course, you really can't do this in 2 semesters. The minimum is 3 semesters.
And also, this is a 60 credit program. So typically students take about 20 credits, and even 20 credits per semester is fairly rigorous. So there are 60 credits you have to take to get the degree. So therefore it's a 3-semester degree. So there's one question here: are the capstone and internship independent? So these are 2 distinct components. So the internships can be in an area of interest to you, whereas the capstone is a regular class that's a central requirement of the program. They might focus on similar topics, so you might end up using similar methods to tackle similar questions, but there's no need for it to be that way. So there's 2 separate entities.
I like this question. How do you suggest we highlight code we have written or contributed to that cannot be shared? So code written while employed as a developer. I think if you can get across the different skills and types of programming you did in a general sense, I think that's okay. I don't think you have to get very, very specific about what you did. Just what kind of programming skills do you have? Do you feel like you're a very advanced programmer, or do you feel you're a beginning programmer?
And I think just describing again, what is it that what was your contribution to that project? You could describe what is it that the software product does, how many people contributed, what was your contribution. Maybe you can describe some of the challenges, some of the problems you were able to tackle, some of the more challenging pieces. So I think that would be a great way to highlight your contribution and skills. There's one question here that I think would be useful to address. I'm going to hand it over to you since I don't think I know the answer for this year at least. When will the decisions be communicated to the students?
Typically early to mid-February is when notices go out. There are no interviews for our master's programs, so there won't be any interviews, but I believe you receive an email of the decision in early or mid-February.
Yeah.
Our program actually last year was the very first program to complete our admissions process, and so we actually got out pretty early compared to the school.
How about having people send recommendations after the application deadline? That's one of the questions that we have here.
That's a great question. Actually, you'd have to ask the admissions office about that. I think it is possible, but I'm not familiar completely with the SOFA's system, and that's the system you'll be using to apply. But the admissions office would definitely know.
And as always, your ultimate resource for things like deadlines and so on will be the admissions page. So that page should clearly communicate when the materials are due, what is expected by the deadline, and so on. Let's see.
I can do this one. Is there opportunity for projects with population studies and oncology with the HCS program? We don't, at least to my knowledge, our courses don't provide an oncology dataset or a population studies dataset, but in a couple of courses you can come up with other datasets if you want, and use that for your final project for the course. So you could also get those kinds of data sets from different faculty and then either work with the faculty on a project or use that data for a final project in a course. So I don't think that, while it's not explicitly provided by us, it's definitely a possibility to get the population studies in oncology project experience.
And maybe a small addition to that. So one option that you have as part of the program is to take independent studies with different faculty members of your choosing. And these independent studies could be as little as a couple of credits. They might be 5 credits or even more. And so if you know about a faculty member or are interested in someone's work, and let's say that they happen to work with data that originates in a specific setting that you're interested in, you can contact that person and indicate your interest. You can say, I would love to do an independent study in this area, and if the person is available for an independent study on that given semester, that would be a great opportunity to do that type of work. So for example, if you're interested in natural language processing and would like to dig in deeper, that could be one option. Or if you're more interested in, say, network problems, you could do an independent study in that area. So you do have that flexibility to dig deeper into areas that you really care about.
I'll try that one.
The top question?
Yep.
So there's some very tough questions here. So how much overlap does this program have with computer science programs, public policy programs, and programs at other schools? So one way to approach this question is that Harvard has currently essentially 3 different data science programs. Health data science, which is being run in the Department of Biostatistics at the School of Public Health, that's our program. There's another program which is a combination of the Department of Statistics and the Department of Computer Science. That's the second data science program. And the medical school at Harvard also has another data science program. And the emphasis of these different programs will vary. So the best way to learn about these different programs is to look in their web resources and web pages and see what are the courses that they provide. Do they have a thesis? Do they have an applied component? And so on. So if you think about, for example, applying to a computer science department and doing that type of data science program, it really will depend on the specifics of that program, but they might, for example, have much more emphasis on developing algorithms, computability, and those kinds of things. One of the things to keep in mind about data science is that by design, it's a very flexible and very broad field. So what that means is that different schools and different departments can tailor their program to their own needs. So it's very difficult to give an overarching answer about how is a data science program different in X or Y or Z. Your best bet is to learn about the details of those different programs.
All right, I'm going to jump down to a really easy question. Is there any possibility of taking health economics electives? And that is a yes. The School of Public Health offers at least one health economics course. I'm sure it offers more than that, but I know of at least one.
And one thing that sometimes comes up, and this is realizing I think we might be getting to the end of our time today, students also have the option of taking courses in different departments of Harvard and also in places like MIT and so on. Mm-hmm. Maybe Heather, could you describe a little bit how that process works?
Sure. So students are open to cross-register for courses at all of the other Harvard schools, including the engineering school and this Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. And you're also able to cross-register into courses at MIT. The only stipulation with that is that they have to be graduate level courses. So you're not allowed to take any undergraduate only courses at Harvard or MIT. But the process has been it's pretty smooth. We've had, I think almost all of our students have cross-registered for at least one course.
Yeah. So this is something that students definitely take advantage of. There's one question about a minimum TOEFL requirement, and this is again one of those questions that we will look at we will evaluate your application, not just based on a single component, but we'll look at all the different components. So we don't keep track of specifics like what's the lowest TOEFL score.
see.
So
Do
we
you-
have
Yep.
we've had lots of questions, and if you have more questions in mind, we would encourage you to go to the program's webpage, and if you have questions, you can also contact us. Our contact information is on the webpage. You can look at the handbook for the program also on the webpage, which should be available there. And that's also an opportunity for you to compare our program to the other master's programs that are provided by the department. Any final words of wisdom?
I will update the FAQ page on our website with the questions that we didn't answer here. I think there's a few good ones. But again, feel free to reach out to us at our emails and let us know if there's any other questions.
And good luck with your applications.
Yeah.
And thanks so much for watching and joining us today.
Thanks.
Bye.